Hello, everybody. Welcome to today's Black Hills Information Security Webcast. My name is Jason Blanchard. I'm the Content Community Director here at Black Hills, and we are so happy that you joined us for our webcast today. It's going email business compromise, and email business compromise is, when I think of so I can just send an email to a company with an invoice and then they'd pay it. No, but maybe. And especially with AI being able to mimic so many other things. Anyway, I don't want to get into what Patterson's going to talk about. I
Yeah,
asked Patterson, what would you like to do your webcast on? And he said this. And the other reason is because he has a 4-hour workshop on this, Pay What You Can workshop coming up in October. We'll drop the link inside Zoom in case you want to register for that. It is a pay forward what you can training class. All right, Patterson, are you ready?
I'm ready.
All right, for those of you that never had a Patterson, like if you've never attended a Patterson webcast, you are in for a great experience. I love Patterson speaking. I got a chance to see him teach for the very first time years ago, and I was like, I'm a Patterson fan from the very beginning. So hopefully by the end of this, you're also a Patterson fan. And with that, Patterson, it's all yours.
Thank you, Jason. Uh, what a nice intro. Hopefully, I can live up to that. Jason's been with me for a long time, and I appreciate all of the effort that goes into making this happen today. It's a lot of work, and all the stuff that's happening behind the scenes. Thank you so much to Ryan and Deb and Jason. Let's talk about business email compromise, wanna? I mean, kinda. No, yes. Here we are. Here we are. I have one short hour to spend with you, slightly less than an hour, honestly, by the time we get into a little bit of Q&A at the end. And I'm always jealous for your time. I could spend all day with you. And we'd have loads of laughs and fun. As per usual, I think I have, 2 hours worth of content in this deck, and so I'm going to squeeze as much as I can into 1 hour. The deck is in the slides resources in Discord. It's about 53 slides long, which means I'm not going to get through all of it. There is sort of an appendices at the end, and I'll mention that as we move forward. So let's plow ahead. These are the three primary threat vectors in general: unpatched vulnerabilities, misconfiguration, and identity attacks. And the long and the short of it is that identity attacks are unique because of the human element. They are among the most challenging because human beings. And I think I mentioned last time we had this discussion, last time we talked about business email compromise, that I wish we were done. I wish we didn't have to talk about this anymore. But frankly, as mentioned on the bottom of this slide, 9 out of 10 breaches in the last 12 months or so start with phishing, start with an identity attack, start with a business email compromise, and then bad things ensue. So we need to talk about it. I apologize, it's a grainy image, but once upon a time, it's been several years ago, fairly early on in my Infosec career, and I was actually on site at a healthcare facility doing some security testing. And uh, one of the one of the test objectives, if you've ever been to a healthcare facility, there's a ton of visitors, lots of vendors, medical suppliers, etc. And so I'm on site at this healthcare facility, and I'm entering the building. And before I get inside, I have to stop by the security desk, give them identification before I get access to the interior. On the way in, I noticed that there's a little computer kiosk around the corner from the security desk, out of sight, out of mind, and it is for vendor sign-in. It's running an application called RepTracks, and the idea is that a vendor could come in, log into RepTracks, print up their own badge, head to security, and then go into the building. And of course, security testing, I'm like, gold mine. So I sit down at this kiosk. Security can't see me, bust out of kiosk mode, enumerate it's a Windows system, it's attached to the domain, it is automatically logging in and authenticating, so pull a domain cred from the registry, begin to do a little quick enumeration, and again, several years ago, so a couple things I do right out of the gate: use PowerShell to do some common port queries and FTP in particular. So I do a quick scan. I find an FTP server in this healthcare environment accessible as a standard domain user from the kiosk machine, and I stumble upon this file, the file that's underlined, employee export. And I, of course, check out that file, and lo and behold, there are about 17,000 employee entries in this CSV file. And we're talking name, address, social security number, MRN for the hospital systems. I mean, salary history. It's just a veritable gold mine. I panicked just a little bit. Again, I think this is a big deal. This is heinous. Early on in my career, keep that in mind. I rushed upstairs. I meet with my point of contact, who's the director of security at the time, and I say, I need to let you know that there's an unauthenticated FTP server accessible to every domain user across the org, about 35,000 people at that point in time, 17,000 records. And I think this belongs, is a critical priority. We got to fix this. The director of security looks at me and says, put it on the list. Put it on the list. Excuse me? Put it on the list. I was deflated. He didn't seem to care. It was not significant at all. He made it sound like there's a list of 900 things, and I sort of hung my head, and I remember specifically walking out of the office, and he goes, wait. Was my information in that file? I got to be honest. I had no idea at the time whether his information was in that file, but I said, yes, it is. Immediate, of course, absolute transformation. All of a sudden, it became priority one, critical, top of the list. And I learned this incredibly valuable lesson, which we'll touch on a little bit throughout this conversation, is how important it is to make this information personal and relevant. That gentleman in that moment had an emotional response. We'll talk about that momentarily. And it changed everything. It changed everything. We're going to revisit this momentarily, but this is my overarching, oversimplified. And if you've come to any of my talks before, you'll know that I'm trying desperately to simplify everything as much as I possibly can. And here we go. And number one, this is among our greatest challenges in the business email compromise kill chain. And this really applies to anything, everything social engineering. And number one is invoke trust and or trigger an emotional response. And we were just talking about it moments ago in pre-show banter, talking about the message I received from John, my boss, with some sense of urgency and some sense of relevance. And truth be told, I had an emotional response. I clicked. And once I made that internal emotional decision, it's all over. I'm clicking. I want the doc. It's from John. It's important. Here we go. We need to kind of take just a tiny bit from the threat actor playbook. I think it's important that we learn from the threat actors throughout this conversation and throughout this process. And this is number one. Triggering an emotional response. And obviously, I'm not talking about frightening your end users or scaring your end users, but at the same time, we need to confront the importance of the human being and the human element, and we'll talk about it in just a second. I put in there, you can't stop 2 seconds of stupid, and I hope that that doesn't offend anyone, because I'm really talking about me. We'll talk a little bit more about that as we move forward. And don't we live in fascinating times? I mean, for crying out loud, not that long ago, we didn't have to worry about all the AI components and the voice cloning and the things are crazy. Things are crazy and they're getting crazier. And our response, specifically from the human perspective, is largely not working. So let's talk a little bit about some prevention strategies. I'm sorry to say I don't have a magic solution, but I have some ideas. And then I want to talk about the detect, respond options that we have, and then pivot to some M365 tips and tricks. And then, of course, leave you with some external resources. And the end of the slide deck is a previous walkthrough of the sort of technical anatomy of modern business email compromise in M365. I honestly, I guess I'm slow sometimes, but I honestly didn't recognize until pretty recently that I think I am an incident response contrarian. I am, as previously mentioned, working desperately to simplify all the things. And this quote was one of my father's favorite. My father was a carpenter. My first career was swinging a hammer and building houses. And I am sort of inherently and innately a perfectionist. And so my father was always saying, strive for perfection and come within a quarter inch. And what he meant was do your very best. But at the end of the day, no one is paying you to be perfect. And the perfect is often the enemy of the good. And so as we move forward, again, I can't be perfect. And this presentation cannot encompass perfect. I'm going to strive for perfection and come as close as reasonably possible to ultimately achieve my goals. And that's where we find ourselves today. So let's talk just a little bit about prevention strategies. Obviously, knowing our enemy is critical. I think in many instances, knowing ourselves is potentially more critical. And we already touched on this step by step. I just want to talk through this and then talk about some opportunities for how we might address and confront these specifically. And again, number one, invoking trust and or triggering an emotional response. This is the hardest one, as previously mentioned. Once that happens, then naturally the human component kicks in and it often overrides our caution, our decision making, and we're pushed to a call to action, whether it's click the link, what have you. Then the next thing that happens, of course, is once we click the link, authenticate often, then the threat actors manipulate the identity components, ultimately looking for money. And last but not least, unfortunately, once they have an identity, exploited an identity in your environment, they're going to turn around and use that identity to invoke trust elsewhere and repeat this horrible, vicious cycle. And again, the number one is the 2 seconds of stupid. And this is just humanity. This is me. This is you. What are we going to do about it? The answer is, I'm not sure. I'm not sure. First and foremost, these interactions are almost always going to originate from someone that you know and someone that you trust. At the very least, they're going to be impersonating someone that you know and someone that you trust. And this is tough. I think it's really important that we illuminate that for the user. The second piece is we may not fix this one. Not to be a cynic, that's part of my job, I suppose, but I'm not sure we can fix this one, especially based on the invocation of trust. Now, we should still try. Don't get me wrong. I think we should try. Having said that, I think we need to look for other opportunities to address this overarching problem. This is, again, my oversimplified approach. I think it's really, really important, as per my introductory story, that we connect with our staff, we connect with our user base as human beings. Tell them a story. Make the educational components personal and relatable. Whenever I'm asked to do end-user training, especially as it pertains to business email compromise, I talk very little about the professional environment. A little, definitely do tie-ins, but more than anything, I want to talk to them personally. I want to talk to them about how they behave at home, their family interactions, how do they protect their parents, their children. Tell them a story. Make it personal, make it relatable, and don't make it last for 2 hours. Don't make it 97 slides long. In my humble opinion, this is my single slide business email compromise, and you're welcome to plagiarize. We've already established this in most people's hearts and minds. May I have your credit card number? No, they have an inherent response to be mistrusting about providing their credit cards. Secondarily, Social Security number. No. The average adult freaks out when asked about Social Security number. And the most important, most critical component of this is protect the username password as a component of your identity because it is critical to everything that you do, everything that you own, every way that you interact electronically in today's modern business and personal environment. That's my single slide, one and only, and then backfill with a story. Backfill with stories about people who lost their credit card number, or who had their identity stolen, or for heaven forbid, had username and password personally and professionally. If you don't have stories, and I'm not joking, if you don't have stories, hit me. I got lots of stories, lots of real world exposés into don't do this. Protect these things, please. Number two, you know this. This is not rocket surgery. Multi-factor auth, you must have it. It is your due diligence. You probably also know at this point that it is not a silver bullet. This is fairly easily bypassed by modern proxy configurations. This does not stop this from occurring, but it is an impediment, and it is an important impediment. And you need to stage this. You need to express to the enterprise, to your org, this two-pronged component. We must have this. It does not solve all of our problems. It is just a single component of defense in depth. And if we're going to overcome number one, the trust triggering of emotional response, we're going to have a defense in depth strategy. Because frankly, as mentioned, the 2 seconds of stupid, for me specifically, there's just going to be those moments where I'm going to click through. So we need some additional components. You knew that one already. The next thing that happens if the threat actor gets to this point is to manipulate the individual and or the stolen identity for financial gain. Again, unsurprisingly. And this one is super important. It may be the most critical component of this conversation right here, right now. And that is what I call multi-factor workflows. And this is the idea that if the conversation, the electronic conversation gets to step 3, that I need somebody else to be engaged and involved in making significant decisions. What do I mean by significant decisions? I don't know. What does that mean for your org? $50 is pretty significant around my house. Maybe it's $1,000. Maybe it's $5,000. Maybe it's transactions that relate to HR changes or electronic distribution of funds. Whatever it is, based on your business model, develop some simple transactional thresholds that require specific response. Paying an invoice that costs $5,000 requires direct out-of-band communication with the vendor. $10,000 requires a secondary internal approval. This is to help me and you to stop, to circumvent 2 seconds of stupid, because when we come together, then we are smarter, wiser. So multi-factor workflows, I think, are a tremendously useful way, transactional thresholds, to avoid the ultimate outcome, the actions on objective of significant transfer of financial assets without authorization. Last but not least, I'm here to tell you that there is a little bit of good news, and that is if you can detect this quickly, if you can detect business email compromise quickly, and we're going to talk about how to do that momentarily, if you can stop this shortly after number 4, then you can largely mitigate the damage. This usually takes a little bit of time. It takes a fair amount of effort for the threat actor to pivot to a stolen M365 identity, for example, to injecting into a financial conversation, manipulating outcomes, redirecting funds. Usually that takes a few days. Now, not always, but if we can stop this quickly, this is an opportunity. It's a huge opportunity. So bad things have happened. Can we detect the ramifications thereof? Number 1, absolutely critical. Monitor for newly created inbox rules with short and or unusual names. Heck, you might want to monitor for all of them. Inbox rules are not super prevalent anymore. This might be a little noisy, but look for short and unusual names. And we'll talk about those, the artifacts specifically in just a minute, but that is monumental. It is among the highest fidelity alerts that we have implemented in our environment, monitoring for inbox rule creation. And what they're doing is trying to hide email conversations from the legitimate user. Again, we'll talk about that in just a sec. The second one is pay attention to outbound mail. We're obviously incredibly concerned about inbound mail, as we should be, but you should also be paying attention to outbound mail, to unusual outbound with links, volume of transaction, because as mentioned, right after step 4, usually the threat actors are going to abuse the inherent trust of the identity they've just stolen. So that's an opportunity. And if we can kill that pretty quickly, we absolutely minimize the impact thereof. So let's talk about how we can see those things, how we can detect and respond. And again, working at simplicity. Don't have time to go into the entirety of the process. Come back for the Pay What You Can workshop. I think it's a couple weeks out and we can step through this entirely. But for now, I want to talk about some tips and tricks in general. So categorically, let's talk about sort of business email compromise SOP, the pieces and parts that we see as common components of business email compromise. The next one I want to talk about user behavior analytics from an email perspective. Lastly, I want to tie that into just a handful of technical investigative tips. And these all, incidentally, will tie into the CTF that I created for you when this is all said and done. Once again, this is not surprising. This is not shocking. This has not changed a whole heck of a lot from what I've seen over the last year or so. The threat actors gain access to an account, to a mailbox, to an M365 account, for example. And the first thing that they do is they hang out. It's usually for a few days, often for 7 days to 2 weeks, and they're observing. They're learning the behavior of the compromised identity. Who are they? How do they engage financially? How can that be abused? They will obviously explore M365 content, which unfortunately includes SharePoint and OneDrive and etc. Ultimately, they're looking for a way to interject themselves into a financial transaction. Often it's an invoicing process, a redirection of funds, ACH or wire transfer, something like that. They are very commonly, almost always, using inbox rules to hide the legitimate conversations from the legitimate user. Among the favorite naming conventions are period or single punctuation mark or single letter, or often just something that they mash on the keyboard, couple three. So if there's a way for you to pay attention to this, it is a detection gold mine, and it is also a responsive gold mine, which we'll talk about in just a minute. They're going to use that rule to redirect mail somewhere that the user never goes, like RSS feeds or archive or something like that. In the last two phases, we're seeing the threat actors more and more often register M365 applications within your enterprise environment. Again, specifically to M365. And these seems to be most frequently an application that's used to synchronize mail. So they don't really want to buy an M365 license, shocking. And so they don't have the fat client for Outlook. And it's kind of weak, so they'll use something else like an EM client, for example, which is a legitimate app used for illegitimate purpose in this case, and that is to synchronize all the contents of the mailbox to their local installation, local system. Unfortunately, that strips our visibility for those transactions, so that's a bad day. But we do want to pay attention to application registration in the context of an identity. We'll talk about that. Last but not least, as previously mentioned, they're going to use the account and then they're going to abuse my identity, for example, to send email to other trusted entities, other organizations, vendors, etc., so that this cycle repeats. As mentioned on the bottom of the slide, as mentioned previously, the inbox rules are gold. If you find the rule, if you find a rule and it is identified to be unauthorized and malicious, then guess what? Solid gold. The domain, probably the email address that the threat actor has been interacting with, it's in the rule. And so it's like cheating almost. If you find that rule, then you find the target, at least a target of the threat actor's behaviors, which is super cool. So before we talk a little bit about the investigative process, again, if you ever come to any of my previous discussions from an incident response perspective, I think right out of the gate, the most important thing that you can do is ask the right questions. Back to the strive for perfection, come within a quarter inch. I want to know what it is the business needs to know from me in this investigation. And this is top of the list. Have we been compromised? If yes, then I need to know all impacted accounts, all unauthorized access, all unauthorized actions. These are the right questions, generally speaking. And so we need to figure out how to answer those simply, effectively. So let's start with keeping those questions in mind. Have we been compromised? And if yes, then how do we differentiate authorized actions, activities from unauthorized, and these are our clues. These are generally the available identifiers. If you authenticate to M365, how do you do so, and how do you uniquely validate your identity in that environment? Not that complicated, for better or for worse. Username, password combination. Generally speaking, you're accessing it obviously from an endpoint that has a browser and or an operating system, sometimes a thick client, of course. You have a source IP address, which is associated at least generally with a geolocation. Hopefully you have MFA based on the configuration parameters in your M365 tenant. So MFA type and device, are you using SMS on an Android? Are you using Authenticator app on an iPhone? Last but not least, once you've completed that authentication piece, you have a session cookie, which is used to continue to authenticate the conversation, so to speak. These are the identifier components. These are the user behavior analytics pieces that make you, and me, when engaging with M365. For better or for worse, when the threat actor gains access to an identity, a few of these go away. Username and password is no longer a unique identifier between authorized and unauthorized, nor is the session cookie because it's likely been stolen and reused. The MFA type and device may be an indicator, which we'll talk about in just a minute, but at this moment, it's not useful because that was probably bypassed through theft of the session cookie. And this leaves us with two things. What differentiates the user from the threat actor is going to be browser/operating system. This will be encapsulated in the user agent string, which we'll talk about, and source IP address. Chances are they didn't come to your house or to your place of business and log in as you. So these are critical. These are our most critical user behavior analytic components. And if we can extract and identify these, then we can use these to answer the remaining questions. Just an example. Again, question number one, have we been compromised? And based on initial investigation, if we find variations, unusual variations in the user behavior analytics pieces that we just looked at, for example, account user HR assistant, whatever, suddenly switches from Edge on a Windows device to Firefox on a Linux device, and I start worrying. And then I see authentication events, of course, happening from someplace other than recognizable IP addresses. And a lot of you are doing geo-blocking, right? You don't let them log in from the Netherlands. They're just going to pivot to Virginia or some other place. So it might not be this obvious. It might be this obvious. And if we can extract those unique identifiers, then of course we'll feed those into the next steps and say, okay, let's look at scope of impact. Let's take these indicators and determine what has been done in the context of this identity. So let's talk specifically about how we can investigate these things within the context of M365. We've framed the question, we've talked about how to extract the user behavior analytics components, and then we'll move into identifying behaviors, actions, activity, etc. Number one, this is the first place I would go. And notice that this is number one, acquisition. The first thing that I often do when called in to investigate a business email compromise in M365 is go to Intra ID, formerly known as Azure AD, and grab the sign-in logs. Can you do that through PowerShell and other mechanisms? You can. I'm not gonna, because this is fast. It's quick. It's expedient. And this is the most volatile artifact generally from an M365 perspective. By default, you get 7 to a maximum of 30-day retention, assuming that those logs aren't being piped elsewhere. So this is stop number one. And I mean, I'm going to gain access. We'll talk to you about that workflow. I'll provide you with a resource to the kind of access and credentials required. But ultimately, I'm going to get effectively security reader. I'm going to head to Intra. I'm going to grab the sign-in logs. There are a couple caveats. This is important. This needs to be done right, so to speak. And so let's just take a quick peek. So this is the wrong standby sign-in log. So I'm in Intra Admin Center, all users, and then I'm going to sign-in logs. And a couple things, super simple, but you don't want to get this wrong. So I'm going to click on this, the date and time constraints, and set it to the max, right? Either 7 days, 14 days, 30 days, whatever is the maximum visibility, that's what I want. So we're going to change the date range. The next thing I want to do is click on columns and make sure you click them all. You're going to want all of this stuff. And some of them, like, oh, user agent, aren't even included if you don't click that and add this to your export. So I want to click all of these. I want to do save. And then I'm going to download times 6, because there are 6 variations, from user sign-in to authentication detail to non-interactive sign-ins, etc. And I'm going to do JSON and CSV. I'm probably going to pivot to analyzing CSV first because it's just simple. We can pop that open in Excel, etc. Critical components, columns, date range. Download in CSV and JSON. That's just my recommendation. Keep in mind that there is a 100,000 max entry. So if you get a nice clean CSV output and it has exactly 100,000 entries, that means you're missing some. So you might have to change your date range and grab these again. Right now, I'm just talking about acquisition, but this is a gold mine. This is our user behavior analytics gold mine, especially if we check the right boxes and puke this to disk so we can manipulate it through something like Excel as opposed to the UI. Not my favorite UI for analysis. The next thing's right in proximity in the UI. That's the admin logs, the audit logs, and these are like account actions. The previous sign-ins, well, they're sign-ins, they're authentication events. The audit logs give us visibility into account changes, and this is super useful for things like, application registration and MFA changes, and similar deal, stand by, directly in proximity. Here we see the audit logs, same context, same console, same drill, mostly. Check the date range, maximum date range, check the columns, not as many to choose from, make sure they're all checked. You only have one file to worry about. Download this in CSV, JSON. We'll pivot again to Excel or your CSV or JSON editor of choice, and not terribly complicated. Couple constraints, 250,000 max records here. This is a shorter log. This is not authentication events. If you are looking at a specific case, a specific user account, then you can limit this, or at least you can start by investigating Patterson Cake. Obviously, I want as much of this data as possible, but if you're in a hurry, I would probably pivot to downloading Patterson Cake's records, beginning my analysis on those records while simultaneously working at extracting these for potentially the entirety of the tenant. That's number 1 and number 2 from an acquisition perspective. Number 3, slight pivot to the investigation. There are security reports. There are sort of UEBA security reports built into your M365 environment in the form of risky user, risky workloads, risky sign-ins. These can be super, super useful. A lot of organizations ignore these entirely because they can be prone to false positives. They can be super noisy. So even if you don't pay attention to these on a regular basis, you should absolutely pay attention to them right now in the context of your investigation. Low effort, possibly illuminating. I feel like this is cheating sometimes. If I've been called in to investigate a business email compromise, I grab Intra sign in, I grab audit logs, I pivot here, and often it'll say, Patterson Cake just logged in from the Netherlands. Like, ugh. Tremendously useful clues. Not always. There are some important caveats, as per the previous conversation. There are about 17 ways to get to this. I think maybe going intra-admin, identity secure score is among the easier. And if you scroll down here, you can see these 3 components. I'm mostly interested in risky sign-ins, to be honest, but I do want to look at all of these. And same caveats, review all of these little options. If you don't remember, doesn't matter. Click on each of them and make sure you understand what they mean. Maximum date and time range. Don't really care about local versus UTC. When we export the data, it gives us UTC, which is awesome. This is critical. By default, if you don't click on that, you don't see all of the risk states. Spoiler alert, If you're investigating Patterson Cake's account, you think something bad happened, what do you do? What do you do immediately? Hopefully, you rotate their password and you revoke all authenticated sessions. And by de facto standard, Intra says problem solved and changes the alert type to remediated. And if you don't click on that little box and select all of these options, you will not see the event in your dashboard or in your exports. So that is ridiculously important. Click all of these. Make sure they're all selected for risky users, risky workloads, risky sign-ins, and at least give this a gander. And potentially super useful. Fortunately, it's finite. It's pretty short. So even if it's not super useful, at least you can rule it out for that initial investigative step. And often it'll give you a clue. Go look over here. Take a look at this IP, this account, etc. Number 4, we're going back to the sign-ins. Remember, we exported them just moments ago. This is a picture from the UI, but I would literally move them someplace else, whether it's Excel or if you're working at scale. SoftElk is a great example. I'll give you some resources about how to move this data to SoftElk as we end today's conversation. But really, again, I'm looking for these two components. Browser OS has encompassed, sorry, in the user agent string, goldmine. Sometimes I have to look for slight variations in the version of Chrome or Edge or Firefox. Sometimes it's painfully obvious, like it is in this example. How often does a standard user switch from Windows to Linux? Yeah, I know, we're not standard users, but most folk are. Really, really uncommon. How often do they move from Android to iOS? It's like almost never. Now, you're going to validate this, right? You're not going to make assumptions that that Patterson didn't legitimately use Linux in Virginia. Pay particular attention to Virginia because that's where all of the world's infrastructure lives, right? If you're geo-blocking no Netherlands, for example, then the threat actors are getting more and more clever about pivoting to more regionally accessible areas. So keep that in mind. But these are the clues that we are looking for. We are going to document and validate these potential indicators of compromise. I'm going to let the environment speak for itself. And what I mean by that is grab that IP, and then pivot back to sign-in logs for everyone in the org, as far back as I can go. Have we seen this IP before? If we've seen it from 73 other users for the last 6 months straight, then I'm going, okay, this is probably a legitimate system. That's what I mean by let the environment interpret itself. Combine these, look at how Patterson Cake normally behaves, user behavior analytics, and generally speaking, it sticks out about that, obviously. Number 5, hang in there. We're getting close. Whirlwind. Audit logs. I'm going to go here next. Sign-in logs are going to be sort of the UEBA components. Again, identifying authorized versus unauthorized. Once I have done that, I'm going to date and time sort of stamp that occurrence. If I see initial auth from Netherlands via Linux on thus and such a date and time, that will help me time box the remainder of my analysis. And so I'll look at audit logs in the confines of that date and time range and say, what happened in relationship to this account? And super important, the items on this screen are actual key value pair components for the log and for UAL. So keep this in mind. If you see it in single quotes there, that's because update user is an actual action. It is an actual UAO recorded action. So it's a useful search string as indicated in the little snippet on the bottom of this slide. Update user, add service principal, add app role assignment. You want to look at those 3 specifically. What are the chances the threat actor manipulated MFA settings for the user? About 99.4%. What are the chances that they added a application registration in the context of that account? Pretty high. Good news is those should both be really finite. Those don't happen a lot, especially in the context of a standard user account. So you want to look at the audit logs and look for those 3 pieces. And once again, I've actually put the key value pair names in there. So strong authentication, user details, new value, what changed, new phone number. Pay particular attention to Google Voice numbers, point in fact. Ad service principal. This is an app registration. This is where we would see EM client, and this is going to be a multi-step process. So ad service principal, add app role assignment. You definitely want to check those out. Display name, new value, app name, EM client. Service principal ID gives us a unique GUID for that app so that we can make sure and find it, revoke it as a part of our responsive process. Number 6. This is, again, acquisition. This is the UAL, the Unified Audit Log. And the promise of the UAL is that everything you ever wanted to see, know, audit in M365 will be in this log, except for when it's not. The challenge with this is that it is reasonably voluminous, and it's kind of a pain in the neck to acquire. Purview, PowerShell, Graph API. I put the asterisk by Purview and PowerShell because, frankly, Graph API requires more advanced planning and more time, energy, and effort than is usually warranted for an ad hoc consultative engagement. If you can do this in advance, then Graph API really it's the future. It's a better sort of overarching solution. But when you're rolling into a specific engagement, an emergent investigation, I'm gonna rely on Purview and PowerShell, and we'll take a look at both of those. Remember our overarching questions, right? Have we been compromised? We're going to say yes. At this point, we've identified behavioral components. We've pivoted to the audit log. We've identified some account interactions. And the sort of last question we have is, what did they do? What did they do while they were here? And the UAL will give us some visibility into that, into interactions with workloads, SharePoint, Exchange, OneDrive, Teams, et cetera, et cetera. So this becomes sort of our what actions occurred, what activities occurred within the confines of the compromised account. Side note, this is kind of useful, kind of fascinating. Every UAL entry has an audit log record type. And this is not, this is again, not super earth-shattering or life-changing, but you can pivot to this link. And this gives you the opportunity to look at the UAL, filter the UAL based on categorical actions, which can be super useful. What are you trying to look at right now? Email admin, security compliance. So this is a cheat sheet from Microsoft, and every UAL entry will fall into one of these categories, and you can filter out noise. What do you want to see right now? I just want to see enter ID, filter on type, record type 8, and just makes your analysis a little bit more finite, a little easier. Again, you have two primary options in the context of an active investigation, Purview. This is not a bad way to go, honestly. If you're unfamiliar, this is a pretty easy point and click. There's nothing wrong with a good UI. This is pretty intuitive. You're going to set date and time range. You're going to provide user context, and then you're going to give your search name, something meaningful related to your investigation, and you don't have to fill out any of the rest. You can. If you want to come back and be more granular later, you can, or you can mash the search button and then be super, super patient. The last time I ran one of these for a single account, it took 36 hours to complete, I think, which is awful. This is why I don't start here. And maybe I should start here in terms of acquisition, but fact is, sorry, I actually don't use the UI. It's accessible, it's easy, so it's worth being aware of. I don't use it because it's painfully slow, but it is an available option and it does function well. It will give you the output that you probably need. An alternative is PowerShell, of course, and this requires a little bit of additional fancy footwork on the allocation of permissions. You need some specific permissions in your M365 role to be able to access an auth through PowerShell. Fortunately for you, I've documented all of that in the GitHub repo, which we'll look at momentarily, so that you can create a custom role that allows you effectively security reader with the ability to interact via PowerShell. And I like this a lot. It gives you the freedom and flexibility to do some direct queries, to pull the UAL, et cetera, et cetera. And again, although it's not quick, it's definitely quicker than Purview and gives me the granularity to extract exactly what I want. One more time, I've highlighted here the specific UAL key value pair entries that relate to inbox rules. as mentioned early on in this conversation, you should monitor this. You should monitor new dash inbox rule. And then as a component of that rule, you'll have a key value pair of name with name and value. Sorry, I didn't make that up. And what you want to do is pay attention to that event and then potentially pay attention to the name value key pair and look for weirdness. Look for single character entries or other things that look like something a normal human being wouldn't type, like mashing the keyboard. Obviously, those are not all going to be inherently evil, but it is worth investigating, in my humble opinion. Let's take a look ever so quickly. So here is the repo. I'll put the link back on the screen in just a minute. This gives you sort of a high-level walkthrough of my approach. And you have a couple different options. I'm a huge fan of taking this data and importing it into SoftElk specifically. SoftElk is a free virtual machine maintained and provided by Phil Hagen. It's a tremendous resource for the ingestion of structured data into a pre-configured Elk environment, and it will know if you extract it properly. It will know how to parse and filter the UAL in such a way that it makes it tremendously simpler for analyzing the UAL at scale. So that is part and parcel of this. I'll show you some specific write-ups about that in just a minute. Right here, right now, this is a couple different things. If you go to this repo, you'll see inbox rule queries. This is not a script. Pardon me. This is just a series of opportunities for how to interact with the UAL and to search for inbox rules. It's just a series of queries that you can take a look at and see if maybe are useful discreetly through PowerShell to interrogate the UAL. Additionally, I have this script. There are about 9,000 of these floating around the internet. Most of them are super complex and probably in many ways more functional than mine. But as per my previous mantra, man, I want this to be simple. I want you to be able to look at this and go, aha, I see what you're doing there. And so all I'm doing is defining an identity. You can do all identities if you want to. We're going to authenticate Exchange Online PowerShell to M365. We're going to define an entity. This is us defining an entity. We're going to define the date range, and then we're going to say go. There are complexities to the number of records that will be returned from a UAL query. I'm sorry, but there's a 5,000 record limit, which is not enough. And so what we do in this example is we're breaking down the queries into 30-minute time cycles, 30-minute time chunks. If we're querying a specific account, the chances that they did more than 5,000 entries in 30 minutes are pretty small. You'll see the output on the screen. You can change that to 15 minutes. You can change it to 60 minutes. And what it's going to do is query for an hour, query for an hour, query for an hour, and then build that output for you in a single JSON file that can be immediately transported to SoftElk for your analysis. How do you do that analysis? I'm so glad you asked. I've written a 3-part blog series on how to leverage SoftElk, and it goes through the entirety of the process from role provisioning to authentication to log extraction to log analysis. I legit can't go through an entire presentation without making up at least one word. So there you go. So these resources are available to you. I hope they're useful to you. As mentioned, we're doing a pay what you can workshop where we go through this entire process. We will talk about the approach, talk about the analysis, take UAL, dump it into SoftElk, analyze that data so that start to finish, you'll be prepared to do this on your own should you need to in the future. The remainder of this conversation is yours and yours alone. I left the anatomy of M365 BEC in this slide deck so that you can take a peek. And this is really just sort of a longer description of standard operating procedure, again, for your review in case you're unfamiliar. Deck is in the channel, additional resources on screen. Let's go to this very last slide, which is this. Talk to me. You have a question, you have a comment, you want to contribute or enhance the GitHub repo, man, I'm here and I would love to have further conversation. So thank you. Thank you so much for your time today.
I don't know. I'm looking at Zoom. I think they liked you.
Yeah.
I I just love hanging out with you all. As
Mhm.
crazy as that sounds, it's a blast, and it's like this crazy supportive environment, which is super nice.
Mhm.
So thank you.
Yeah.
You're
Right.
awesome.
Great
Well done.
job.
Great job, Patterson. Oh, Jason, you are muted.
So Patterson, we're going to let people, in case they have any questions, go ahead and ask those questions inside Zoom or Discord. And in the meantime, John, you're going to introduce your CTF, and Patterson, you'll introduce
Yes.
yours, and we'll put them all into the webcast CTF channel. If you have not joined Discord yet, if you join Discord, discord.gg/BHIS, we have the link inside Zoom. We also put the link, all the places. We'll put the link if you need it. So if you join Discord, once you get there, there's a channel called Webcast CTF. Now, it's possible that you don't have access to it, so just go to live chat, type in anything, like literally the word anything. We'll make sure that you have the right role to be able to access that channel so that way you can participate in the CTF. And I know you're like, that's a lot of barriers to entry, but you'll be set up for all the CTFs that we have in the future based on our webcast because we believe you'll come back. And the reason why we believe you'll come back is because we have a program called Hack It. And Hack It is where every time you engage live in Discord during a webcast, we give you credit for it, and then we give you rewards for your 10th, 20th, 30th, 40th, and 50th webcast. We're going to keep doing that in 2026. And so if you've already hit 50, we have a new way of doing it in 2026. But in the meantime, let us know if you can't get access, and we'll take care of you. All right, John, that was a lot of preamble.
All right.
Mhm.
So this is our second week working with this. We've all been working kind of hard to come up with a CTF because we have the joke, do we suck at capitalism? Can we make it suck a little more? Or are we doing something cool in the form of free webcasts and workshops? Could we please make it a little more awesome? And one of the things I got to thinking about, a lot of webcasts, they do cool stuff, and you're like, I want to do that. I want to do that thing. I want to try to do that. I want to do something associated with it. Who the hell did the AI like Frodo and put my face on it?
Oh, yeah, there's a
That
lot of your faces
that's
things,
holy
John.
crap. AI is getting pretty accurate. All right. Keep your secrets. The first one that we set up with the team at BHIS, I guess we're going to call them the John Strand Flying Monkey Brigade, is if you go into the Webcast CTF in our Discord server. And once again, Jason, what is our Discord server again? What is the, how do you get in?
Discord.gg, HTTPS discord.gg/BHIS.
This one in this post
Oh,
webcast challenge, we are going to be looking at a malicious.eml file. Seriously, one would think that we would have solved the whole email as an attack vector thing, but alas, no. But hey, job security. Here it is. So I provided you a .eml file link. It's stored up on an S3 bucket, and I have some questions for you. I want you to answer the following questions, like what is the sender address? What is the attachment name? What is the obfuscation technique? What is the JavaScript function? What is the decoded payload URL? What is the MIME boundary? And what is the priority indicator? Now, you may be looking at some of those things and thinking to yourself, I don't know what those are. Two things about that. Number one, that's the challenge.
Mm.
I want you to sit down, answer these questions, and don't just answer the questions. Like write out and explain why it's important. Explain why the MIME boundaries are important. Explain why obfuscation and deobfuscation is important. I want you to do that write up because we're going to get your hands dirty with these webcasts. You're going to actually do these things, right? I want you also to check out a cool tool. Sublime does email security. They do some really cool stuff. And they have a really neat analyzer that you all can play with. I'm hoping we can give them the BHIS hug of death, where they have a great tool. I want lots of people to check out the great tool and drop that email file in, see how many questions does it answer, and do good write-ups. Lots of screenshots, little call-outs, little arrows. Use ChatGPT to help you create definitions for things. Do this as a write-up as though you're going for a job interview. Because once again, I'm going to take all of the solutions at the news next week on stage, And we're going to choose one person that solved it. Zach and I are going to be on stage, and we're going to choose one lucky person that gets access to the entirety of the anti-siphon security training catalog. So it'll be going until Wednesday of next week, Cyber McJunkin. So be sure to check that out. We're going to be doing it live on stage. So you'll have plenty of time to do it. And that whole catalog, that's a whole lot of cybersecurity training. I mean, we're talking sans quality, awesome, cool stuff, which you just saw from Patterson is in there. That's just what we're doing. So we'll walk that through. But whoever does the best write-up is going to get a free on-demand class of their choosing. So we're giving away just lots of classes on that. Where do you put the write-up? You post it right here in the Webcast CTF. Now you can use the double pipe trick to do hidden, no spoilers, where you can do pipe, pipe, put in your response, pipe, pipe, and you have to click on it to be able to do that. Oh, Jesse's too nice. Thank you, Jesse. You can put it in as spoilers. You can put in the write-ups. If you're curious and you're like, I have no freaking clue, come back next week and I'll do a walkthrough, but you'll also have a huge database of write-ups of people that did solve this challenge. So you can walk through it on your own. So that is challenge number 1. But for this particular webcast, we have 2 because Patterson outdid himself and he has one as well. Patterson, is it okay if I put it in?
Definitely.
All right, here we go. Here is challenge number 2, and you have to solve both. You have to solve both of these challenges to get put into the raffle, and you have to do the write-up for both of them to get put in for best write-up. So you have to do both of them. I'm not giving away one free subscription for one challenge and another. There's only one free full on-demand catalog subscription going out next week, and only one other free class of your choosing. So here it is, Patterson. Can you walk us through it?
Yeah, absolutely. So bottom line is that you've been called into a business email compromise investigation for M365. And good news, real life, usually by the time you kick off an investigation, you have at least one clue, which is suspicious activity occurred in the context of somebody's account. In this case, it's Larry's account. So we've given you Larry's name, Larry's email address, and we've asked you to answer a handful of questions. We've talked today about standard operating procedure for business email compromise, and so we want you to look at a portion of the unified audit log. We're providing that to you in CSV specifically for Larry's account because that's where the suspicious activity has occurred. And what we want you to do is look and see if you can find indications of malicious or unauthorized inbox rules. We want to have you explore the audit components and see if there are an unauthorized application registration. And then we want you to make sure that there aren't any attempts at persistence, meaning the threat actor manipulated auth or MFA or something like that for Larry's account. And then last, maybe the hardest, is can you ascertain the domain that the threat actor was attempting to interact with? And in this particular case, we're suspicious that there's a doppelganger in play. So you can pull down that UAL. There's just a little malware in it. Just kidding.
Little malware.
And sort through that based on everything we talked about today. And to be honest, this is kind of what I meant by being an incident response contrarian earlier. I hope that you get done with this after today's conversation and go, dang, that wasn't that hard. That's my hope, because it is not that difficult if you follow this process and ask the right questions and know where to look. So have fun with that. I hope it's useful. And again, that's sort of a teaser trailer for what we're going to do on the 17th, is it, I think? Workshop. Yep. So thank you.
And I'm going to be doing it from the stage. Patterson will be there in spirit. But remember, whenever it comes to malware, I used to do a little, but a little was a little, but a little got more and more. So once you get hooked on the malware train, it's hard to break out, guys. Yeah, you're going to like this.
So true.
All right. So Jason, we brought it in on time.
We did. We landed this plane. All right, Patterson, if you could wrap up everything in one final thought, what would it be? And then we'll stick around for a little bit of Q&A. So Patterson, final thought.
Switch to Novell GroupWise for your email.
Yes. Yes.
Huh?
Awesome. I'm down. Lotus Notes Dominoes database.
Oh, man.
Let's do it.
Uh,
Yeah.
yeah. Boy, I don't know. This is hard to summarize, but I think the most important thing we talked about today is the human element and the multi-factor workflow components. I hope that that's beneficial in your org. The technical pieces and parts we can come back and talk about later. That's easy to drop on GitHub and easy to document and outline. It's a lot harder to engage with the human component in your org. So best of luck with that. And again, thank
You
you so
know,
much for the time and attention today.
so I've got a little thing to kind of address that. We're working on the new zine, and the new zine is all about incident response.
Mm.
And
Oh,
we are going to have a section talking about communication and how
mhm.
to practice that. So Cassie's working on that. I've approved all the articles. We have a whole bunch of technical things. If you haven't seen our zines and survival guides, you should check it out. We can drop a link for everybody. But we have lots of really cool things for you guys out there.
Mm.
And so we're going to stick around for a few minutes, Patterson. We got a couple questions came in. So this one's a future. It's a suggestion for a future. Oh. All right, so that's the end of the webcast. So we're in post-show banter. So this is future webcast suggestion. What tools, techniques are people using to analyze suspicious emails? Thinking those that have to review reported emails, the pros and cons. Yeah.
The honest answer to that question, I think that's a fantastic question. And the truth is, I'd like to follow up on that question at some point with people who know better than I on that front, like our SOC analysts and Hayden Covington and some of the folk, Eric Cano, that are doing that daily. I don't I don't do that, to be frank. I get engaged after those things fail. But it is a
What is the
fantastic
question
question.
though?
Looking for like email analysis tools, inbound security, kind of stop it from bad things happening. Or
So
did I
there's
misunderstand?
Yeah, we did a
so
webcast on this.
so the
Yeah.
two big ones that I hear talked about is abnormal. It does really well. And like I said, Sublime is the one that we've been working with. And I know on just the BHIS side, it's really done a fantastic job at reducing the number of attacks that we have been dealing with. So those are the two that I see people talking about all the time. I don't know what else is chat saying on that.
Yeah, and Tom DeJong did an entire webcast on that. So I
He
just put that
did.
into the Discord and I put it in the Zoom. So if anyone wants to follow along, you can watch that. It's one of the most watched webcasts of all of 2025. So we asked Tom to come back and do another one in December.
Sounds great.
Hmm.
Any other questions?
All right, a question here. What happened to John's hair? There's
Gone.
Jeez.
Mhm.
It's gone. I don't know what to say about that. I think the best thing to say is when you get old, you lose things. But I just went to the point of cutting it really, really super short. And there's two reasons. Number one, I'm losing it, so might as well just cut it short. And number two, it's really easy to deal with. Like I just get up in the morning and I don't have to worry about bedhead. It's kind of cool. So I don't know. There's people that are like, oh, well, you could do all kinds of things to try to get your hair back. That sounds like a lot of trouble for something I didn't care about to begin with.
So Patterson, you're typing the answer to that question, but do you want to say it out loud?
About John's hair?
Oh, my hair?
Just kidding.
Nope. Nope.
Yeah, great question from anonymous attendee. What other kinds of tampering do we see? We mentioned inbox rules, doppelganger or lookalike domains, manipulation of conversations. Those are by far the biggest ones. And although not necessarily tampering, the next thing that we see, unfortunately, is the manipulation of external accounts from that compromised identity. I mean, think about how you reset passwords for important things in your life. You're like, I forgot my password. Can you email me a reset link or a way to change my password? So that's kind of a tertiary one. Threat actor gets into your mailbox and unfortunately gets into your GoDaddy account or your, whatever, your AWS account by resetting passwords, hiding those inbound, outbound rules. And that can be super messy. That's pretty common. Look for domain registration activity. or see the threat actors again pivot to creation of doppelganger domains through your account, which is brutal. Great question.
Yeah. Also, John, one of the things I'm seeing is like if we stick around, if we announce it when we do, and we can stick around to help people get into Discord and then let them know that they got to, because we do have a bit of a time delay from when you join the Discord to when you can talk. That's
They're
the
getting
cut
in
down
there,
on
though.
spammers.
Yeah.
But yeah, a lot of people are getting in there. So thank you so much for participating in the CTF. Thank you so much for joining Discord. And the thing about Discord is like it's here for the hour and a half that we're here for pre-show banter, post-show, the actual webcast. But it does stick around. So if you have questions about cybersecurity, there's over 100 community leaders that are here to help answer your questions. There's over 200 contributors that are here to help answer your questions. And so if you're a person who wants to help answer other people's questions, you can also become a contributor and a community leader too. And so thank you to all the people that help make this a place where you can ask questions and get your questions answered. All right.
Patterson, when are you going to do an IR report writing class? Somebody made that suggestion.
Ooh, that's a
you know?
spicy topic.
Yeah.
That is talk about being an IR contrarian. That's a beautiful opportunity. I'll get to work on that right now. That is a fantastic question.
Well, they said, BB has a pen test report writing class. Where's our IR one?
Yeah.
It's a perfect
So in case you're
opportunity.
not aware, in the industry as a whole, there's an aversion to incident response reporting. And historically, it's been because of privilege and confidential concerns. You've been compromised, you may get sued, and you don't want everybody to know that the reason you got popped is because you failed to patch for Eternal Blue, the patch which was out, 6 years ago or whatever. So literally, there's this very controversial how you create a report and what you put in writing. So that's a fantastic. I like controversy. And I have some distinct opinions about that. So I like it.
All right,
I've
y'all
got two
heard it here
requests.
first. 4-hour
Yeah.
workshop, right? It'd be perfect for
Yeah.
a workshop. Let's
Patterson
go.
likes controversy.
We'll combine that with a Google Workspace email business compromise one and make everyone on this channel happy today.
And I just kind of want to springboard on that. Like Patterson said, I don't in the IR space, we've been talking about this quite a bit, but in the IR space, like Patterson said, there's an aversion to writing a good report, right? Because the more information you put in the report, the more ammunition you're giving to the cross-examining attorneys and the opposing forensics firms. And I think it's one of those things that we as an industry need to fix, because I think it's a lie. I don't believe that it's necessarily because you want to reduce the amount of information you're giving to opposing counsel. I believe it was to drive the cost of IR engagements down. Because if you're looking at an IR engagement and you do solid reporting, you do a good write-up, you do good work, it's going to take more time, which is going to cost more money, and it's going to require a higher skill level to be able to do that. Whereas if you're a pen test, like not a pen test, if you're a, let's say IR puppy mill, right? You're just churning and burning through incidents as fast as you possibly can. You're offshoring. Once again, nothing against people in India, other than the fact that they're being taken advantage of and being paid slave wages to do highly technical work. Then you really don't want that report to see the light of day with a ton of details. So this probably will be a webcast whenever Patterson and I get some time to sit down and have a conversation with other people in the industry that work incident response to try to change things for the better. But it's far more complicated than just, do a good report, because there's all kinds of other political and other things associated with it. So it's a long answer, but
Yeah,
yes.
doesn't that like go back to tabletop exercises too? Like during a tabletop, a lot of things get discovered, and during that, like for tabletop exercise reports, could that also be used during discovery? Like, hey, we identified in this tabletop exercise that we had all these flaws and
Patterson, correct me if I'm wrong, but almost everything is discoverable. Like if you were a cross-examining attorney or an opposing attorney, if you knew to request, I know in a lot of the engagements that we get, they get requests for previous pen test reports. We see that a lot, but I've never once ever seen attorneys asking for IR tabletop exercises and outputs.
Yeah, I have not either.
There's
lawyers,
a lawyer watching this
I
going,
was gonna say,
yes,
lawyers can
yes.
constantly surprise you, but yeah, I
But
think
But this is how we get out of writing those now. Whenever we do tabletops.
I like it. That's what we do. We do a one sentence letter of attestation.
Exactly.
This was completed on this date.
Yeah.
So speaking of which, John, do you want to like tell people that they can hire us if they want to, and give them like a few seconds if they want to bail?
Oh, sure. A little bit of marketing. BHIS, we're there if you want to get hacked for pen testing. We're there if you get hacked for incident response. You can work with Patterson. We're there if you want to help make sure that you don't get hacked for security operations center stuff. We're there if you want to actually find out if you've been hacked in training. We're basically your one-stop shop for all of your hacking needs. So check out blackhillsinformationsecurity.com. So there, how's that?
Pretty good.
I don't know.
It was great.
That felt like a
don't
really
know.
good soundbite we could use for
I
something.
know. It was very non-John Brandy.
I just don't know. Like, I suck at this part. I'd rather be like, here's a bunch of cool free shit. We give
Mhm.
this away for free. Imagine what we charge for. So that's better.
That's even better.
Yeah.
Black Hills Patreon. Yeah, just
Yeah,
give us money.
exactly.
Yeah. Hey, Ryan, can you bring up Discord large for everybody? And I want you to go to the top where it says show all channels to make sure that everyone, so at the top of the navigation bar, there's a feature that Discord was like, well, you probably don't want to see all the channels. But
No, I do.
yeah, I really do. Every time.
John
So-
doesn't.
No, I don't. Oh my God. No. How do I shut it off? What did you do, Jason?
So if you cannot see the Webcast CTF channel, there is a chance that you belong to the Black Hills Discord server. You know how to find it, except that Discord is choosing not to show it to you because it's a new channel. And it's like, why would you want to be in a new channel? So that is the feature.
John, Haircut Fish made you Bill O'Reilly.
Yeah, well, that is just unreal.
Why-
Like,
who
that's
gave that
crazy.
man? Who gave that man or that person, that individual AI?
Man.
Well,
No one
speaking of,
cares
hey,
about your
wait,
Wordle score.
Dan is giving an anti-cast in November. I
No
feel,
way.
He
Yeah.
Is
is.
it his first?
yes,
It is.
and I'm screenshotting the heck out of his face.
We're gonna
the
make so
entire
many
time.
gifts of him.
I know. Turnabout is fair play.
Yeah.
So,
I'm gonna ask Ryan to go full screen multiple times just so I get a nice high res, of his face, like in all the different positions. So that way.
Oh, it's so good.
all right.
All right, is that it?
I think that's it. That's it.
Oh, someone has a running tabletop would fall under CMMC compliance, which a lawyer may be savvy enough to ask if you truly complied with all the CMMC line items, but it
Ugh.
seems unlikely. If they're that rigorous, you've got bigger problems.
That gets into a longer conversation. I'm actually thinking about going back and getting my law degree. So because I don't have enough shit going
All
on.
your
in my
spare
life right
time.
now.
Yeah.
Yeah, you got tons of spare time, John.
I know I do. I know.
All right. Well, we launched 2 CTFs today. We have a Kickstarter ending tomorrow that just crossed $50,000.
Yeah.
Wow. So thank you so much. Patterson's got a workshop.
Oh, don't
coming up.
forget we got the physical backdoors and breaches competitive.
Yes.
expansion.
Yeah, physical backdoors. We have a
Prototype,
Wallace Hack and
prototype.
Fest special edition of the future that's available at Wallace Hack and Fest next week, where the team goes to Wallace Hack and Fest in their own timeline. So
Who did
it's
this cover?
essentially
Cool.
the year 2070 or so, and they go to Wallace Hack and Fest.
Paul Pope is the artist who did
Yep.
that cover.
You know what would be awesome is if I could get this on a skateboard.
Huh, really? You think that'd be good?
I think that would be
You
great.
see a
Hey,
skateboard?
maybe-
Hang on.
Maybe
It would
we
be.
could do
Don't you
that.
think that would make a great deck? A
I don't
great,
know. Are
a
you
great
sure, John?
skateboard deck, like
I
that.
don't,
Yeah.
I don't know.
Look at
Wait!
that.
Are
Oh
you
my
sure?
God!
Are you sure?
Oh my God! There it is. Oh,
Yes.
Jason, did you read my mind?
I
did.
did. And
I've
then you see
never
the one
seen
that,
him
have you
run
seen
so
Zach's?
fast.
Yeah, have you seen this one?
That one's ridiculous.
Cool. There's a big brain on the. That's awesome.
That's so cool. See, this is like, once again, this is what we do for free, folks.
Yeah.
I'm telling you.
Well, the skate deck's not free, John.
But we're giving it away.
Oh, we
Yeah.
are. Giving
We
it away.
are. So-
Yeah.
Yeah.
Cool.
So that all happened. John and I were at a comic book store, and there was skate decks on the wall. And I was like, "Hey,
Yeah.
John, can we make some skate decks?" And he's like, "Yeah, like 10."
Yeah, just put it in.
Like,
I'll just
yeah.
send it to
Like
me and I'll approve it.
10.
I'll approve it, Jason. That was, I'm trying to figure out how many times I've told Jason no, though.
It's a handful.
You
We should-
normally
We should create a board at the Baltimore office that's like things John has told Jason no. And I'm sure if we think about it, there's going to be some things there.
Yeah.
Maybe
Um,
like even like not now.
Yeah,
but
not
I
now
don't
is
think you
normally the
said
answer.
no.
Yeah, but we
Yeah.
should have like the no thing. Like, Jason wanted a dirigible. No, didn't even. So,
Wait a second. But why? Why can't I have a dirigible?
I think you did ask me once, like something with lights on the side, like renting it and going over RSA or something. We had talked about that, and I was
A
like, no.
drone?
A drone show. Oh, we were gonna do the augmented reality over
Oh.
RSA at 1.2.
We were, but augmented reality just isn't there yet.
Yeah.
It's getting there. But yeah, we're gonna do that someday. Yeah.
Yeah.
A BHIS Zeppelin.
People are asking if the virtual Walrus Hack and Fest attendees can get the special comic issue, and the answer is yes, after Walrus Hack and Fest. So we have either a way to get it to you digitally, or we'll have a way to get it to you physically, but we're working on both of those. Because
When are we gonna sponsor an F1 team? You probably say no to that, I think. Yeah.
Yeah, that does what? No. Yeah. That and sports teams. I don't think that's
Yeah.
gonna happen anytime soon. Maybe it should. I don't know.
Oh, we could advertise on the Sphere in Vegas. That's a good idea. We could
But no
just
one's
hack-
going to
hack the
Vegas now.
Sphere.
We can advertise with that cat. We can sponsor. See, I'm down for sponsoring the cat. I want to get sponsored by V8, low sodium V8. I'm still waiting for that. It's just not happening.
I've looked into that, John. I've never told you that, but I'm working on it.
You're working on it.
Yeah.
That would be a life goal, right?
Yeah.
That would be a life goal. So,
all right, well, this has been good post-show banter.
yeah. Well
All
done,
right.
Aaron.
All right.
I
Well,
guess that's it.
Good
huh?
luck with the CTFs, everybody.
Good luck.
Good luck,
Good luck.
everybody.
Good
Yeah.
luck. And we'll see some
And-
of you next week.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Deb, your final thoughts.
My
How
final
about
thoughts.
Deb finishes out and
Oh
then
no. All
Brian
the
kills it.
pressure.
All right, Deb.
Well, I'm going to say the same thing I say every time, which is just thank you so much for showing up. We know there's so much noise and it's getting noisier. And the fact that you spend, 2 hours sometimes of your time with us is just, it always warms my heart. And so we appreciate you. And it was Jerry Springer that I said last time. I was like, take care of yourself and each other. Something like that. Don't clip that. That's not going to be as short. And that's it. Thanks.
Kill
for
it,
showing up.
Ryan.
go
Kill
forth
with
and
fire.
don't suck.
Yes. One job. Kill it.